We are back with the Veterans in Politics 2011 endorsement interviews. So candidates, in front of you is a red button. You're going to push the red button. It will glow. That means you are on mic. Go ahead and give us your elevator pitch. Let us know who you are and what you've done for the community.
Well, my name is Stanley Washington. I've been in the Las Vegas Valley now for 17 years. Most of my time here has been centered around service. Most people who know me will tell you that. I primarily am known to be a community advocate, has been such for the time that I've been here. Primarily my service started out with the NAACP under the direction of Reverend Scott. After serving under his direction, I rolled over to Reverend James Rogers, who became the president. I continued to serve. After continuous service there, it moved out to more broader areas. But my specific areas of focus have been, strangely enough, veterans. I've been a veterans advocate ever since arriving. I've known on the veterans front from a number of different circles. My most recent initiative that I'm most passionate about is the initiative to eliminate homelessness among veterans over the next 5 years, which is the initiative that President Obama and the HUD is currently bringing about, but won't come about unless there's individuals on the ground to make sure it happens. So I've spoken with Steve, and I'm out basically letting the publicly know. I've addressed the City Council. I've already called for a workshop among all the agencies in Clark County to be prepared to request that Secretary Donovan of HUD come here to personally explain how serious it is for this initiative to happen. That to go ahead and state that by 2015 we want to have no homeless veterans on the streets is nice, but unless there's an action plan with someone who has the same passion to bring that about, this is not going to happen. So I have been informing leaders that I'm the one who has that passion. I have the same passion that Larry Rubel has for the Alzheimer's Center, the same passion Andre Haggerty has for his project. And unless you have those type of passions, they won't come about. My most recent initiative that I'm working with on a more smaller scale is the American Legion's Post 10. That is the only African American post out of 55 posts in the state of Nevada. And it recently was under the name of VFW Post, but the American Legions have been given an opportunity by National to go ahead and bring that thing back to give service to the community. However, it's a little problem of about $500,000 to go ahead and get it there because the building's been there for 60 years and the only thing that's worth anything is the four walls. We're talking about a gentleman who risked their lives in World War II so we can even go ahead and be here. And for $500,000 to be in the way of a building that's been in the community for 60 years and has meant so much is ridiculous, with the Modern Museum being $50 million and the Smith Center being $500 million. So it gets down to really who cares and who really cares. So I've stepped out to go ahead and call this community together and led that initiative there. I've had some buy-in by Councilman Ross. I've had some support from Tarkanian and Captain Burns, but we're going to go ahead and continue on this mission until we get this done.
My name is Mr. Randy Voyard. I'm running for City Council in Ward 5. I have a background in working as a contractor and a cable television engineer. I've worked for about a decade prior to moving to Las Vegas, all over the Eastern Seaboard. I've lived and worked in about 8 different states, paid a lot of taxes, paid a couple of tickets, a variety of fees. I moved to Vegas just over a decade ago, and I changed my life here. Went back to school, changed my career, bought my first home, started my own first business. And one of the main things that I have a problem with as far as the reason I'm running is because I don't see a strategy for the city of Las Vegas. We're at a particular point in time where the city looks like it's going to start to redefine itself. A lot of people talk about diversifying the economy. The old paradigm structures that we function under as far as being a capital for gaming and tourism don't seem to be able to support what Vegas has become. So, in general, I'm looking forward to working with whatever new blood comes into the city council to reinforce and to remember exactly what the purpose of government is. It's not to make the lives of the citizens any more difficult than it already is, but to augment it and to help them support themselves and to find the direction in which they want to lead their lives. The city council functions, it seems to me, as a very large HOA. And this is our residential community. So therefore, My background as being vice president on my HOA for the past 4 or 5 years, as long as I've been there, our dues have not gone up, our finances are sound, and our community is still a pleasant one to be in. It's not the best one, we're not wealthy by any means, but it's a decent place to be, and it's a decent place to live. I think Vegas can be just that, and more, but it's going to be up to the residents to decide what they want it to be. The direction I'd like to see it take, that's my own personal feeling. What I'd like is the independence to make that happen, regardless of whoever sits in the Board of Governance. So again, Mr. Randy, running for City Council Ward 5.
Talented, bright veterans in politics. Ward 5 has been, it's had a lot of complaints. There's been a lot of economic development issues. For instance, there's been a lot of complaints from the constituents that they've had problems going to the grocery stores and things of that nature, just simply because they're closed down and moved on to other places. The current councilman has made claims that he has brought a lot of economic development back to Ward 5 since he's been since he's been elected. So my question is what is it that you plan to do better than what the current councilman's already done as far as economic development, and has he done what he said he's done? Thank you.
Stan Washington. I'm glad you asked that question, Mayor. I've been in Las Vegas for 17 years, so I started right away. So that means that it goes back 12 years when the previous councilman was there. So the question really needs to be asked, what has happened over the last 12 years? 8 years under the previous and 4 years under the current. And I think it doesn't take much to go ahead and look over there and see. If he claims that there's economic development that's come about, the only things that have been specifically cited over the last 12 years was the Voyard market that came into play that previous councilman couldn't get done. So we must go ahead and applaud that accomplishment there. Voyard market did come into play. He did make that a priority for the owner there. I believe that resulted in about 100 jobs for the community there. And the other claim to fame, I believe, is the palm trees in Martin Luther King, which I don't think brought too many job creation opportunities there. So if there's any other activity other than Voyard market that resulted in some jobs over there over the last 12 years, I certainly am open to anyone showing them to me. Now, where the jobs have come about over that period of time is on the south side of the freeway, which is also Ward 5, which the current system and state law says that many people from the north side of that freeway should be working in the Las Vegas Premium Outlet Mall, in the World Market Center, in the Lou Law Center. Now, I challenge you to go ahead and see who's working over there. Certainly not the people on that side of the freeway there. So when we talk about where the jobs did come from, they certainly didn't get targeted by the people who were supposed to have them. And just so you know, the people who were supposed to have them first in the redevelopment area are the veterans, and repeat, the veterans and minorities. So I submit to you, you go ahead and you look at that situation there, and that has not happened. And over that frustration the last 12 years, which has prompted me to go ahead and run, because we cannot afford another 4, 8, 12 years of what has taken place there. Now, my specific plan in terms of what I am all about as a job developer goes all the way back to my record of having been the one who was responsible for causing the diversity that you hear so much about on the Strip come into play. Prior to 2000, the gamers didn't know how to spell the word diversity. But due to my efforts with, at that point in time, Terry Lyman, Kirk Corrine, and other events that were taking place, you saw MGM come about with a strong diversity plan. I submit to you, if you ask Jim Murren right now who's responsible for that, he will take Stan Washington as responsible for that. So my record as being a fighter, not just for Ward 5, but for everybody in Clark County is very evident. I'm now focusing on Ward 5 because there's been no elected officials that come about. We supported the current councilman last go around. My brother contributed $350 to his campaign. He promised us he would do a better job than the previous councilman. Has not happened. Only people running Ward 5 on the south side of that freeway is the mayor and others, and quite frankly, we need a representative who's going to bring our community back to the people. I am currently presently working with the gentleman by the name of Mr. Marnell. He's the lead promoter of the high-speed rail that you basically heard so much about. I submit to you that I'm probably the most knowledgeable candidate running in all the races, mayor, all the races, about high-speed rail, having put together and produced 5 forms, 1 independently and 4 in partnership with UNLV, after they came to approach me about joining me in that particular effort. So I've been on top of that issue from day one. I'm the only one working with him. I got him agreed to go ahead and do a set aside, whether it's 10 or 15% for veterans first. There's 17,000 jobs scheduled to come on that high-speed rail. Do the math, that's 1,700 jobs that will be charged straight in to the Ward 5 community with $1 million of training dollars to boot to be leveraged in on top of that. You're free to go ahead and call him that. So I'm an action player. It's not about just this council seat, it's about the bringing back of Ward 5. The council seats, as you can see, they come and go. I was here preceding everyone, whether it's Jan Jones. Well, Jan Jones is here, but everybody else is newbies. Oscar, all of them, newbies. So this idea that it's just a Ward 5 thing, no, it's time for me to go ahead and do what I came here to go ahead and do, which is to go ahead and bring the community back. Thank you.
When I reflect on the 8 or 9 years that I worked as a contractor across the various states that I worked in, one thing that became very clear to me that it didn't matter where you were from, people to people. People tend to do the same things wherever they are. They have homes, they have families, they have jobs. They like those things. It doesn't matter if there's a city government, state government, it doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're law enforcement as a state trooper 20 miles away in your neighbor, or if it's a volunteer fire department and you're in a bucket of water. People do what people do. The way I see it in Vegas, as far as the problems that we see in Ward 5, they're not particular to just Ward 5. All of Vegas seems to be affected by it. I think some of the plans that I would like to implement, or at least some of the ideas that I have, would work for the entire city of Vegas rather than just a particular ward. Primarily, I would look at incentivizing the use of the empty commercial real estate that we've got all over the place here in Vegas. We've got new developments on Lake Mead. We've got the Marcello Airport north of my ward. We've got a variety of other commercial areas all over Sahara and Charleston. All of those places are just waiting for someone with an idea and the finances to make it happen. As far as what the city council could do, I'm thinking make it as easy as possible for a person with the finances to get a business going, get it going. The failure rate for small businesses tends to be highest within the first year or two. If the city council or the city government could alleviate the stress and the burden on those companies that are just starting out until foot traffic increases, they can make their revenue through the sales. If it's a retail, they can make their revenue back in productivity and increase foot traffic if it's a service. But either way, the city council should not be a burden to a person starting their own business, to a person starting to engage in commerce, to anyone who's doing something to buttress this economy. So one of the main things that I would do would be to find a way to reduce the stress that the city council, whether it's financial or regulatory or whatsoever, on new businesses that are using up space in already developed commercial properties. The second thing I would do is keep streamlining, keep that process going as far as the way the city council has already started regarding the simplification and the putting of information online and the access to all the other requirements that businesses may need to start themselves up, to continue along that path. Why? Because it shouldn't be a difficult thing to file for your permits and applications. You shouldn't get 3/4 of the way down the line only to find out that after you've deposited thousands of dollars that your project still can't happen or is going to be delayed beyond the point where you can afford to make it complete. So when the city council looks at things like that, I think it should be more consistent, more efficient, and more predictable so that when people have ideas, because they're the ones who make things happen in the city, not us, not the city council, not the government. Because whether we're here or not, they're going to do something. Whether they're going to work in the street, washing a car, or working at the stand, or whatever it's going to be, they're going to do it. Let them do it. Stay out of their way. Still fulfill our responsibility as a governing and regulatory body to make sure that the residents who take, who benefit from their services or products are still safe. But we should not be an obstacle to a person being able to engage in commerce to lead a productive life. So those two things, incentivizing the use of the empty real estate and increasing the predictability, efficiency, and might I add courtesy that people find when they engage with city government in the whole process of licensing and permits. I think those are the things that will help make a difference, at least at the early stages of any commercial activity in the city.
Thank you. Lou Bello, Veterans in Politics. What is your idea, and would you support a separate veterans licensing process? Whereas if you are a business entity that is 100% veteran owned, and you get to the Las Vegas business licensing agencies and you're looking through what to pick, how much they are, so on and so forth, would you support a veterans licensing board that not only streamlines it, but waives the fees for a 100% veteran-owned business entity so we can start helping our community?
Absolutely. That falls exactly in line with what I was just saying. The extra incentive would work well, especially for the number of veterans who will be probably coming back from the current conflicts we have in the Middle East. Las Vegas has a very high percentage of the population that are veterans, and this would be an excellent way, actually, to continue to cultivate that population and to allow them to know that this city can be known as the place to be when you're retired military or when you post-discharge military, to come in if you have business ideas. There are a lot of connections that can be made within that network of veterans, and there's a lot of support that that entire network can provide for each other. In addition to government programs and other stimulus programs, that's not the priority. The priority is the fact that there is a network of people who are willing to support you. If people know that, and veterans in particular, I see no reason why Vegas would have any competition with any other state when offering business opportunities and commercial activities available to people who have come from the military to continue on with their lives, irrespective of whatever damage that they may have sustained. I'd like to see more rehab centers here personally because I'm a physical therapist assistant, but that's beside the point. If we're talking about commercial ventures, yes, I'd absolutely support that. And I would support it also for people who aren't veterans, but I know that there should be some programs in place to help facilitate the progression of a veteran out of the service if he's got a business idea. I mean, I think it's worth it. They put their time in, make it time well spent. Make sure that the rest of their life, we should help. That's what city governments are for, to help facilitate the living, the basic living that every individual and every citizen of the city has.
Please state your name before you
Mr. Randy Voyard for Ward 5 City Council.
and before you start. State your name.
Stanley, Washington. The only way that the initiative to address the veterans homeless issue in 5 years and to bring about the veterans' dignity is to do all of the above that you're talking about. Not only are you talking about the licensing of the veterans, I'm reaching out to Governor Sandoval to go ahead and ensure that we have a Veterans First initiative across the board. If we're going to go ahead and really go ahead and do a service to those who've done a service to us, we can't put them in line behind everybody else who happens to be in a better position to go ahead and get the job and get opportunities. Because jobs come down to who you know, politics and everything else going down, and our people are not at the front of the line when it comes to that type of stuff. So if we're going to go ahead and meet that objective, we have to not only have separate veterans licensings for businesses, but for the jobs. That's why when I sit down here, I would go ahead and make sure that each developer that comes in downtown that you hear about Symphony Park, they have to come and meet with their Veterans First plans, because guess what? We're not just saying that we're going to go ahead and address it in 5 years. We're going to do it, and if so, your measures have to be in place to go ahead and do that. And funny, he should mention about the rehab centers. He is correct there. My information tells me that 50 to 75% of the veterans' problem when it comes really to go ahead and getting in the business, getting the job or the home, is the mental health issue. So no one's fooling anybody there. But the first thing you hear about is there's no budget at any level, whether it's the city, the state, no one has money to go ahead and address that. I said, well, that's a bunch of malarkey, because if we can go ahead and figure out how to get into these wards, we can figure out how to go ahead and address that. So my solution to addressing the mental health, and it's basically there, is we have to expand the sources of revenue to go ahead and cover that. Now, I don't know one country in the world that has not benefited from the projection of American power and protection around the world, causing all these mental health problems to come into play. If our guys come home and responding from around the world and they have mental health issues, those countries have a responsibility to make sure that guy's back and normal. So as we go ahead and think about how we're going to finance $50 billion or $100 billion necessary to go ahead and address mental health in America, we just go ahead and split it up among the countries that we protected, and you can believe me, if we give out the business of starting an international initiative to go ahead and underwrite that, we can go ahead and get that done. There's no reason to leave that capital out. And right now, I'm going to be meeting at 4 o'clock at the homeless meeting that's going to be taking place over the county during public comment, giving this very speech, because I already gave this my ideas to the city. They said, Stan, you need to go around with every homeless coalition meeting, hear what you're talking about, because that's the answer, right? No, the city doesn't have it, the state doesn't have it, but the international community has it. And that's all we have to do is to make sure prioritize it, and we can get rid of mental health anytime that we want.
I also have a follow-up question really quickly. Located right across from Nellis Air Force Base is United States Marine Corps and Army Reserve Center. Like you said, the Veterans Initiative, 10–15% of the first new hires will be given to veterans, correct? And both of you gentlemen seem to share the same sentiments. With that being said, what is your position on the act? You know, we have a reserve unit here from Nevada, located right there. You know, we were the first reserve unit activated in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. We led the charge into Baghdad along with Nick, the moderator. Would you, what is your opinion on giving the veterans from Las Vegas even more preferential treatment than a veteran from outside of the state? If you served your tour of duty out of the Reserve Center from Nevada, would you say that they should get moved up the list as opposed to, you know, or the veterans from Nellis Air Force Base, as she's helping me. Go ahead, thank you.
I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, even though it's not in my ward. I'd be fully supportive of any sort of venture of that sort. Why? Because again, if we're going to foster, if that's going to be one of the goals for Las Vegas, to foster that sort of a reputation as the go-to place for veterans, I mean, that's an enormous pool of talent and resources that we can have access to. Incentives can be given. It won't cost us anything. We can't think of it as in terms of money that we wouldn't have if we didn't charge them the right amount or as anyone else. The bottom line is, you make this the place where people want to be, they'll make it the kind of place they want to live in. If you can incentivize the process, whether it's from buying a home, like I said, or starting a business, vehicle registration, free, I mean, you know, there are a lot of things you can do to make this place a lot more attractive for people who have particular skill sets coming out of the military or who are retired in the military to decide that Vegas is the place for them to call home. So whether they're discharged in their residence of Vegas or they're discharged in their residence of another state but want to move to Vegas, well then the sky's the limit as far as what we can offer people that doesn't really cost us anything, that would make this city a very mature city in terms of the populace and what they have to offer to the city as well. You know, you have guys with connections around the world, especially if they serve overseas. You have commercial ventures that they can engage in with a variety of people. You know, I worked in a warehouse that was opened by 2 former Air Force vets. They formed a garment dyeing factory. Why? Because of people who they knew where they can get the raw materials from. They were able to do it efficiently. The city was very friendly with them. They did it. They feel like they made a very successful business out of it. I don't see why that can't be replicated all over the place here in Vegas. As far as homeless vets, that's another thing. I mean, you never know who you're going to run into. And to know that this is the go-to place for vets, it makes it that much easier to service that population, regardless of the condition they're in, if you already have programs and facilities in place, as well as a very sympathetic community who understands the plight that these guys are in, and women as well. So.
I believe that anytime you're talking about a home rule type of situation, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Las Vegas is so diverse, and I have a feeling a lot of the airmen come from all over the place to come and be there. So how long they were there, if one guy came in there was there longer than another guy, I don't know how you kind of do that, because it's pretty diverse. But anything centered around veterans being first, and then if it's a geographical thing with it's Las Vegas, Nevada, certainly that would be in play.
Down to right, veterans in politics. When somebody wants to run for a council position, I think it's very important in order to, you know, get up there and sit in that seat, that they need to know exactly what they're talking about, and that they need to know exactly, you know, what it is, what kind of an entity that they're running for. So I have a 2-part question. I have the question number 1 to Mr. Voyard is, can you give me the parameter of the Ward 5 as far as the streets? And for Mr. Washington, can you tell me exactly what an alderman is and what they do? Thank you.
If I'm remembering correctly, going from the map aside from little pockets within it, we're looking at Rancho as the midline, going from part of Cary all the way down to Charleston on the east side, extending from Rancho all the way to Bruce. And then on the west side, you're going from Rancho all the way to about Rainbow, and from Cheyenne down to Washington, if I remember correctly.
Alderman, councilman, I understand that those 2 terms would be the same.
Correct.
And as far as the duties, I think it's the duty of a council representative to make sure that the people in their ward are given the best opportunity to go ahead and be successful from an economic development standpoint, an educational standpoint, a health standpoint, and also then to turn around and leverage what it is doing within the ward to go ahead and make the rest of the wards better, because leadership has to come from somewhere and isn't just limited to your ward. So certainly, his first responsibility is to the people of his wards in terms of the things that are supposed to be available to the people of his particular ward. And that is really which compels me once again to why I'm running, because I believe that those things have been absent over the last 12 years.
That's not bad. Basically, very important to know what your ward is, and as far as, being an alderman or councilman, it's actually is the same exact thing, depending on what size of the ward is. For the most part, you need to balance the budget, you need to make appropriations, you need to set a tax rate, you need to pass ordinances, and you would also need to, hire and fire the employees. But not bad, thank you.
Can I add to that?
Certainly.
I think you're right, and I believe that the city has capable staff that when you get there brings you those things, you're supposed to make sure that they're doing that. But I think the real thing when you sit in the seat is the courage to hit the button to do the right thing. I think that is what has folks wavering and the difference between what you get and what you don't. The functions of budgets and staffs and all that good stuff comes into play. But from my experience, I would imagine that the current councilman is not doing a bad job in that area, the area of representation and making sure that the whole ward gets represented is where the challenge comes into play.
All righty, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have for Ward 5. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in.
Thank you.